skins. Let's go. We're live?
Yeah.
Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to the regularly scheduled Dev Q&A. Sorry we're a little bit late. As someone just turned that right, I said, the voice of God you're hearing here. No, it's actually, it's me, Sam, here as usual. I'm off cam this week because, as you can probably tell from the production,
naked.
I forgot my clothes this morning. As you can probably tell from the slick new production values, we've moved into my sparkly new AV room for this week's Dev Q&A. It's,
there's walls on this side.
Yeah.
That side, nothing.
Exactly. So, there's not enough room for three of us on cam. We've got, we actually missed last week. We had sort of not too many of us around, but here we are, ready to answer all your questions about what's new in Fractured Space. Obviously, haven't had one at least for 3 weeks, so we've had the carrier in that time.
Didn't we have one? We had one. No, we had one 2 weeks ago. No, we had 2 weeks ago.
I think 3 weeks ago.
Was it? Okay,
yeah, because we done about.
I'm trying to remember China trips.
Yeah, the trip last week sort of threw things, didn't it? So this is your chance. We've got Stanith and Too Many Blows tonight joining us. Both got plenty to say about new ships. If you've got any questions, so did I just miss something? Did I look away?
Just trying to remember how to fly.
Fire away, guys. We are ready for your questions.
Let me guess, there are no questions.
There is nothing just yet.
Oh, right.
Awesome. Well, it's nice questions.
Yeah.
This is it, guys. If you've got a question, now's the time to ask because you'll get it asked. But that's just for now. What's going on this week? What are we working on?
Well, the big thing. Okay. There is kind of a bit of news actually. Not great news. So the big things we're working on were 2 new ships as usual. Trying to get the 2 new ships on, which we can go on to in a bit, and also trying to push forward the map changes that we've been discussing for months, obviously.
Yeah.
There was a lofty goal of trying to get a form of releasable version of the map towards the end of the month, although we were always kind of, without actually getting any serious external testing, that was always kind of a reach. And Willis, who obviously is our level designer, has been off sick quite a bit last week and is off sick this week, which is sort of like causing a bit of concern on where we'll be in terms of releasing that. But I think what we do want to do is get to a point where we can release it on a Thursday night in a special branch and get the vets in to test it prior to any kind of public release anyway. So that is still possible this month, but we're very worried on the state of the map because we haven't seen it in a while, so stay tuned. I think that's going to be an evolving
basically, we'd like to get it ready for some form of external testing, ideally. It won't necessarily be on the live game or anything for a little while yet.
And it probably will be like special occasion Thursday night kind of deal. Stan's been doing a lot of code work to help support that, in addition to the work on the ships. But we'll have to see how that goes. Willis has been off really, really sick the last few months, so that's going to hit development on that map. But it is moving forward.
It's going to be such a game changer, isn't it? We were saying today, I think surely this is the biggest thing that's changed since we went launched early access, I think, isn't it?
It's the biggest single thing.
Biggest single change,
Biggest single change, although what will probably happen is the whole map won't go in as a whole. I know Willis is very keen to release lanes and enemy base as a single component. That would leave Gamma pretty much the way it is now, with a nice little backdrop, but functionally the same. It may be, depending on how we go with this month, the first release is actually even simpler. It may be just the lane component, which is the most mature of the changes. So maybe it comes out in pieces, maybe it comes out in a couple of chunks, but yeah, we'll see.
I haven't even played a tester on that.
Well, which is why we're a little bit worried, but it's a lot of cool stuff in there, and it will change. I mean, the guys were all talking online about how the fact that a ship that may not be competitive now would be competitive maybe in the new map.
I was going to say, yes.
So it'll be that will cause some changes.
Because I would imagine it significantly changed the role of something like the Destroyer, which is obviously all built around long-range bombardment.
Massively.
Current meta.
So that will definitely have a bigger role to play. In there.
Well, heavies generally, we've been looking at one of the issues on the heavies that we'll get out in the next patch is that their survivability doesn't keep pace with the amount of damage it's doing. Stanith and me were talking about it, and so we're going to introduce a component on the heavies where they actually do get a buff to their armour just to maintain their survivability through the game, because at the moment it tails off massively toward the end game where damage goes up and their health doesn't go up enough. And even if their health goes up enough, as it used to be way back when, it's not enough because once your armor's down, your health is almost doesn't matter how big the number is.
That's it, yeah.
So we're going to give them an armor modifier that'll help bring their survivability up.
Yeah, especially as you level up your armor, if you're playing a heavy, will actually get improved a lot as well. Whereas currently most ships they don't do that basically.
Yeah.
That's sort of speed up the progression of the game and stuff. Like people become easier to kill.
I've gone back to the flagship recently, so I'm glad to hear that. I've been really enjoying it lately. I think it's.
Yeah, the other thing we're looking at is, that we've mentioned, is that the AOE generally, specifically the flak, doesn't break through armor, especially if you're hitting it.
Oh yeah,
so
there's this email chain flying around last week.
Yeah. So I'm looking at. I've talked about it for a while, and it's come up in the Q&As that I want to go back to flak and create sequential fire. Because you've got all these turrets, and they're meant to fire one at a time, bang, 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 and create a field of flak. And I did some work on that a few months ago and then haven't been able to touch it. But we're going to use this as an excuse to revive that. Create a separate version. This won't be a separate weapon, this will replace flak. But it'll fire sequentially, but it'll also do armor damage on direct hit and impact damage. So it'll turn into something that can break through. But hopefully look cool.
Sounds perfect. I've just noticed our first comment of the evening from, rather worryingly, from Commandos. Get your question list ready. This will start soon, I hope. We're live.
Very soon.
Yeah, like as in
now.
More than imminently.
Can you see us?
In the past. We are
Can't
definitely live. So.
Yeah, well, I hope we're live.
Yeah, no, we are because I'm looking at it. So
oh, well, fair enough.
I hope so. Sure. So that's. I guess can we talk about the other new ships that we're working on at the moment, or
we can.
Obviously, we released a sneak peek on Twitter last
Commando,
week.
type something when you hear this, just to get some kind of response thing,
Oh,
so we can prove we're not in a 500-minute delay.
Yeah.
The two new ships, ostensibly the Ranger and the Titan. So yeah, the TDS Titan is the heavy for that line because it doesn't have one yet. It's a gorgeous looking ship that Lung Design Shore built. It looks very, very cool. And Al is, Momocom is currently building up the systems for that, and it's still early days. It doesn't have all the systems, it doesn't have its balance, it doesn't have anything on it, but we're kind of aware we want it to work with a couple of offensive weapons, one of which is very restricted on angle. It has a build up to charge and then fires.
Alright, cool.
So it's a cool looking beam weapon, and the other one is given to a large number of minigun turrets that takes a while to wind up and then fires. So it's got some interesting offensive weaponry. Its primary feature, and we're still discussing ways that we can control this in terms of its impact to the game, is that it creates a jump point that your team can jump to around the ship. Yeah. And it's something we originally discussed on the flagship way back. But we're kind of going to introduce that as the first step towards being able to put down jump beacons and jump locations from other ships. So that's going to be a big game changer in terms of what it can do, and we need to look at the ways we're going to restrict it so it doesn't break.
I imagine that, yeah, that's with the new map coming in as well, that's a lot to consider, isn't it? I would have thought.
You want that kind of cool moment where you hit it and everybody, because anybody jumping to them will still be hit by the same restrictions. If their jump's on cooldown, they can't jump. There'll be a limited period where they can use that jump location. So they, if they've just wasted, they've used their jump to get somewhere else, they won't be able to take it up. So it won't necessarily be the whole team jumps, but on those perfect situations, the Titan jumps to Gamma, everybody comes in at his location, not the jump point. So it should be interesting.
Envisage some really cool Battlestar moments,
Yeah, so we always want to get that. We've always discussed kind of like the whole point of the ships and the game modes and the classes. One of their objectives is to create those full-on, full-team battles. And the reason Gamma exists is to create those battles. The reason we have the stations and defend is to create those battles, and that's what we want. We want to see 4v4s, 4v3s, 5v5s, those kind of full-on, everybody kicking ass kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like basically where you have a reason to sort of come together and have a battle, and then maybe go back to what you did before, and have a sort of flow of the game.
Yeah, peaks in the flow, and it just the water cooler moments and all that.
Definitely. How about the old the Ranger?
Yeah, so the Ranger's like a small. It's USR, right? Yeah, USR craft. It's got. It's interesting because we called it. As we've kind of mentioned before, we're trying to push to a point where we start greyboxing ships again, and they go to art. But because design's been under pressure, we have so much to do, and gameplay's so much to do. We're often reacting to a mesh after a brief.
From a long time ago, basically.
Yeah. So the Ranger was kind of an attempt to create an attack ship, a small attack ship on the USR, very much like the frigate on the Zarek. And the brief was pretty much, it'll be something like that-ish. And Hans went off and made this really nice, cool ship based on that premise, making sure we have the turret positions we need, making sure you use silhouette, making sure it looked cool, and Al's taken on that ship and is building it up, but it's very much taken with building a ship around that name.
Right.
So it's called the Ranger because we kind of like the name and it distinguished it from the frigate and all things. But Al's created some weapons for it, including kind of a hold charge weapon where you've got a relatively short firing time, and all this has got to go through internal testing. We've got to look at it. QA's got to look at it.
It's pure concept.
Else, yeah, exactly. Well, he's got a prototype working, but we need to play with it. But the idea is so you can it's got a hold charge weapon, so you hold and release to fire. But if you there's an optimum to it, which is hold, release on the weapon, and the idea is to give you that bow, aim, fire thing that you get on a bow in a Skyrim or anything else where you're trying to get that shot off.
Sure.
So it very much feels like a futuristic. It's no, it's just a projectile weapon, but it's that feel of a bow weapon. And the other thing is to get some sort of keen detection stuff in there, so he's sort of like a scout, ranger scout. How we go going through the field as well. But it's still early days. He's still playing with a lot of the concepts he wants to get in, but it's looking interesting.
Sounds good. Okay, Seraphine's here. Good to see you, Seraphine. We have a lot to discuss. Seraphine says, Crispy, are we on delay?
I do not believe we are.
Because I'm just wondering.
It would have told me when I started.
Yeah.
Not.
We don't seem.
Those questions are, all those comments are on the live feed right now.
We're, because we don't actually seem to have any questions. Fire away, guys. Please do ask away. We're here and ready. So
yeah.
Let us know. Don't be shy. So we've talked about 2 new ships. Talked about the new map. Trying to think what else we've got. Obviously, we've got the tournament going on at the moment, which is sort of ticking over.
Yeah, it's a minor thing, but we're looking to extend we've been discussing, something else we've been discussing is looking to extend the player ranks, because obviously we've reached a point where a few people
we've got a no name.
Yeah, have exceeded the available ranks.
Yeah,
and this is just, we were aware it was going to happen, we were aware we were getting there, it's just getting the time to do it. So I'm going through extending the number of ranks and the milestones. So you may see some small rank changes go when that goes live, but it will mean essentially that, it won't run out at 11, which is funny. Yeah. It's just time and time to get to it. But we'll address that.
Plenty of ranks for you guys to chase, basically.
Yeah.
Won't run out anytime soon.
And what we're also looking at is the original numbers were actually kind of like very quickly reach a point where you have just quite early, quick transitions between levels, which you want. But then it was going doubles. And as Stanith would always say, you stayed in Commodore for what felt like fucking ages. So we're going to have a look at the numbers, tweak them so you're changing rank more often. And it's not like double what you've already done to get to the next one, double what you've already done to get to the next one. So that should be still help.
And so anything to do. Okay, so first question is here. Let's have a look. First question we've got, Seraphine, can we start with the Equalizer? The gun tracking is horrible. Tried it and it's actually easier to hit when it's not tracking.
Well, actually we haven't changed the tracking. One thing we did do is there was a bug where the circle that indicates the accuracy on the gun that you always get for movement or movement of ship or movement of target was broken. So that whenever you first moved it, it went out to wide and never recovered. That was a bug. There was a tick box not hit or a value missing. So we fixed it so that the aiming reticule actually does shrink to what's intended.
That was the only thing that changed in the last patch.
Yeah, the weapon itself hasn't changed. So that's not saying it's doesn't need help, or it doesn't have an issue, but obviously we haven't changed the functionality of the weapon, its accuracy, or its tracking. For a long time, you're just getting more feedback. But what we've found before, especially with way back in the VLR cannon, is the VLR cannon was way overpowered, but nobody knew how to use it, and so it was ignored. And then we fixed the visual, everybody realised how to use it, and now they realise it's OP. Right. So it could be that there's people were using it and not realising the way it worked, and so it felt okay or it was acceptable, and now they're seeing how it works and realise it's not. So
basically, obviously, we'll take a look at it.
But it hasn't changed since for a while now, and obviously it's been doing
well
okay.
Anyway, unless there's a weird bug there somewhere or something. But
it's always possible.
Look into it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one to explore. I mean, we have been getting a lot of feedback on the Equalizer recently.
I mean, it's worth saying as well. One of the things that came off the last Q&A I did was some alternate Equalizer guns, which we'd like to get to when we have some time. So that's still on the boards anyway. But that's not fixing the problem. That's just
that's adding. Yeah. Red in game. When will we have team play? Well, I think that's. I think it's something we probably don't have a firm answer on, but it's something that's obviously a priority.
Play with friends, specifically?
Friends and party system.
I would presume that's...
Yeah. Well, feel free to correct on the question, but we're going to assume for the next couple of seconds you're talking about play with friends or friend parties. We had some big discussions on trying to get in a number of things which incorporate play with friends, matchmaking, all these kind of things, and they kind of come as a group. You can't kind of do one, because obviously if you're playing with your friends, gives you an unfair advantage against anybody on the team that's not. So, for example, most games try to pair up groupings on teams with similar groupings, which means ultimately you're matchmaking. Sorry, you probably much better.
Yeah, so basically the issue is if you have matchmaking without a friend system, then people stop playing because they can't play with their friends. And if you have a friend system without matchmaking, then it's unfair because people will stack teams in public servers, much like in an FPS game. So they both need to come together, basically. So we're working on matchmaking and a friends and party system, and yeah, we can roll those out together. I'm not sure the exact date or anything we're planning to roll that out. I mean, we will be doing some early tests of it, hopefully, within like a month or two's time.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the kind of timescale is it won't hit the next patch because we can't do one of those things in isolation. So it's a bigger task and it's running into next month, and hopefully you'll start seeing something. Although, as usual, it'll probably be a step one rather than a completed feature.
Work in progress, right?
Yeah.
I'm planning a blog post on this stuff anyway, so we'll definitely have some more answers on it in there. So what have I got here? Serafine, we discussed the Equalizer's weapons, and I think we said we'll take a look on that.
Absolutely.
It's we need to. As I say, we can address that number.
Is he expanding on the
made some tests, and it's actually not able to hit the brawler ascending in a spiral. Brawler isn't exactly an agile ship. I mean,
maybe it's a way to do with. So it makes to do with the way it's moving or something. Maybe we need to look at that.
And as Serafan says, I just want an alternative option. Exactly the same gun, but not tracking.
As I was saying earlier, that there's an intention for doing alternate options, but
we need to fix the.
We wouldn't be discussing this if it was fine. So I think we do need to look at the other weapon as well.
That's cool. I hope that's come to consensus, Serafan. So let us know if not. Okay, so very quiet in the chat tonight, guys. Please do.
Either that or they're writing really long
essays. Any plans to change last hit gets the kill in that Reading game again?
That's already actually.
We are changing that.
Yeah, and we've talked about it a lot in Q&A. We talked about obviously it hasn't come out, which is the thing, which is that we want to move to takedowns. We want to combine damage assists and kills into a single component that players are rewarded for. We talked about it. I don't know, January, maybe February or something, and at the time I wanted to hold off moving on it to see what the community said. Even back then, I think pretty much everybody was agreed. We let it sit for a while, everybody was agreed. So it actually became a task that we're going to implement. It's just, like, we're talking about things like matchmaking, friends lists, changing the entire game mode and maps. We have some huge tasks underway. And I think in that kind of workload, it gets caught up, but it's a task on the board. We do want to do it. We will do it. It's just a question of when it fits in.
Commandos, I think we might have covered this at the very start of the Q&A, but I'm not sure everyone would have seen it, so if you guys are happy to revisit quickly, briefly. What do you guys think about the community suggestion of increase the flagship's armour? It's not that tanky, to be honest. I think we were talking about its levelling up.
But basically, the way it currently works is the armour isn't scaling up as you level up currently on any of the ships, in fact. We're currently re-evaluating some of the heavy ships, especially the flagship, to basically make so that the armour and the health both scale up quite a lot as you level up properly, so it doesn't become like paper thin like by level 7 or 8. That will hopefully be a massive buff actually to those ships, so we have to be careful. But
what we don't want to do is what we could do is increase the armour on the flagship at the beginning of the game and then make it much harder to kill. In the later game you won't notice, you'll be screwed. So what we've done is it's actually taken an existing modifier that we actually applied for the crew. We've applied it to the way the flagship or any heavy actually levels up, and then their armour increases with their health. Because the thing is, you can't balance it with health. Because if you just increase as I assume you know, hence the question, you increase the health, the damage increase from armor means that health increase just disappears. So we did the tests, and basically we've got an armor value currently checked into our dev branch, which kind of means the survivability of a heavy is consistent through the levels, so it should resolve that problem.
Yeah, I mean, we must admit, actually, like level 0 flagship is actually pretty formidable, but then as you get later and later throughout the game, they become...
Yeah, you're one-shotting him with a...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right, okay, Seraphine's back. Any plans on fixing Zarek dominance? Problem aren't exactly the Zarek ships, except the Enforcer, which is just too versatile and too good at everything it does. It's the sorry state of USR ships and the Equalizer.
Yeah, we'll be visiting the balance of all the ships.
Yeah.
We don't disagree with you as such. I mean, obviously, we do understand that part of the problem is actually certain ships perhaps being slightly underpowered now, like slightly over-nerfing the Brawler, for example, and problems like that. So we will be addressing those.
I think also we want to address these things very carefully. I think something we've learned from the past is you've got to be very careful with how you react to issues in the game, and I think the Assassin is an interesting example where you had a ship that was incredibly OP, and we had the ways to bring that down were actually nothing to do with its ability to deliver its damage or attack. It was the cooldowns on its maneuverability, and that brought it down. But then that to a reasonable level, and then that broke because we introduced a number of ships that could deal with it, and the solution ultimately was to put those cooldowns back. We would actually argue that we still need to do a bit more to the Assassin, specifically its ability to land shots, but we need to be careful on how we address any of those imbalance issues. What we've actually discussed, specifically with regards to the Enforcer, is rather than making drastic changes to it, is when I originally released the Enforcer, the tail end of its damage was the point at which you got your hit, and the community feedback was actually that was quite hard to land. It was too hard to land, so we moved the peak back into the volley, which makes it much easier to get the larger bulk of the damage. We kind of feel that moving that peak toward the end, maybe not the end, so that getting the full hit the damage is much, much harder to land in a normal situation, would be one way in which you would smooth the edges of the Enforcer without breaking it, and then we'd start looking at things like cooldowns and boosts and stuff.
Yeah, cool. I think that. I mean, as Seraphine's gone on to say, the Brawler was a very good counter before it got nerfed, and the Equalizer was a very good counter to the Enforcer before the tracking. And I think that's kind of what we've just covered there, isn't it? It's more to do with other
the
ships.
interesting thing is obviously we look at the metrics and stuff. I mean, this is a bad metric to run ships by, and you can't use it in isolation. But looking at the KD throughout that period, the Equalizer and the Brawler were way above the Enforcer in their KD in games, which is why they got attention and why we looked at them. And we are bringing the Brawler back up some. It went too far, but likewise, if you look at the things now, it's what the Infiltrator and the Assassin on the KDs, and the Enforcer's way down. But
I suspect that from Cloakers. I suppose.
Yeah. But obviously that's only a small part of the picture. We are aware that the Enforcer has too much of an advantage, and we will be looking at it.
Okay. Oscar Lady, what's the other bar for opposite the health? Currently reading 2000, so that would be the right side of the HUD.
Yay!
That's the energy bar.
It is.
Basically.
So that's the energy system that's currently, as actually we initially rolled out on the Infiltrator cloak, and then as requested we rolled that out to the Assassin cloak, so they run off that energy bar. We will be adding systems to use that, but ultimately the intention is to run that across a large gamut of ship systems, so we can use it to do things like control whether an Assassin can jump and cloak or not. What the first probable thing you'll see is we'll start using it for things like point defense, so there's a lot more clear communication on where you are and where point defense is running. But obviously the trick there is getting a system that will work with the existing ones, which is like the cloak. So, is it fair that an Assassin cannot use point defense once he comes out of cloak because he's used up all his energy and he has to wait for a while? So we've got to get the values right. It'll be a slow progress, as you can imagine, going through all the ships and balancing a system that controls whether you use your systems. We need to be very careful with. So
it may even end up being a little bit like Mono in like Dota or that stuff, where actually not necessarily every ship will utilise it 100%, if at all. Maybe we'll just have to see basically.
Yeah, I mean also a lot of games obviously change the name of what that bar is used for. It could be range, could be mana, could be discipline, and then that system might work in subtly different ways. So moving down the line, that's might something we look at. But yeah, it's very much a mana pool at the moment. It's consistent across the ships, we need to be.
Okay, more chat here. Seraphine sort of continuing the theme on Zarek domination. Take a look at yesterday's tournament for the Zarek meta. I actually need to look up what the tournament results are because I haven't had a pack yet. But we need to get on that. Thank you, Anarchos, for the hosting. Right, Seraphine, the carrier is not working. Okay, if you could expand on that, Seraphine, I'm sure the guys would be happy to talk about that. Commandos, I think all of us want to know what changes will the carrier have on the next patch. There's a lot of opinion about the carrier changes, but I love the first version of it.
Yeah, I think it's more because we need to look at the balancing of point defence more still. We'd like it to be a little bit more skill based in
yeah, if you can clarify a little bit. I think the problem is less with the carrier. We actually made some changes to the carrier. We actually massively improved your ability to control the fighters and send them. The distance is insane on those things. But I think ultimately what happened was we had a point where I did a balance pass on small ships, missiles, and point defence, to the point where point defence could be in the right circumstances 100% effective, but just fired on closing missiles without taking into account direction wouldn't be 100% effective. At some point, where a bug was fixed with point defence that meant actually working way more efficiently than the balance I've been doing, so now it's 100% efficient again and just destroys anything that comes into contact. I need to do another pass on point defence, and that ultimately will affect small ships, missiles, drastically affect the use of carrier if you're aware of it, those kind of things. So,
yeah, we actually also discussed a few different ways of achieving that, haven't we? Possibly making point defence deteriorate in effectiveness the longer you have it enabled, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have a few things to explore and experiment with first before we can give a definite answer. What's going to be?
Sure, we've got a little bit more on that from Seraphine in just a moment. I'll just quickly jump into Reading game. I'm old and a little hard of hearing. Did you just say you're going to bring the brawler back to the way it was? I think, we're talking about bringing
towards the way it was.
It.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're gonna give it a gun.
That's it. Okay, back to Seraphine here. I'm very convinced the concept of missile bombers is flawed. Of course, a binary weapon that does have a high burst damage or no damage at all. Most often it does not damage.
That goes back to point defence. The assumption there is that point defence will always negate 100% of damage. As we're just saying, that's not the intention. So you'll actually find a varying amount of damage will break through point defence. Base movement, relative movement to the missile, the point at which you actually activate point defence. So there's a number of parameters there that mean you'll probably take somewhere between 20 and 80% of damage intended. So, and that's not including armour or any other thing. So I don't think that's specifically true. But the game isn't doing that at the moment. The game is binary and it's not meant to be. So we need to know that.
Cool. Seraphine here just throwing up a concept for a potential other weapon.
I think we have had a look on the forums, I think.
Yeah.
I think you posted stuff on the forum, didn't you, Seraphine, about
right,
other ideas for bombs and stuff. And there's possibility for other loadouts where they're act differently. The current implementation, it's not possible to do your exact idea yet, so we require some code and stuff. I think he suggested bombers that had hit scan weapons.
All right, yeah.
Something like that.
And I think one of the things about the carrier is obviously it's indirect attack ship, and there's a lot of things you can do with the loadouts that can completely change what the carrier does. You could have support roles and much more defensive roles and things that expand your view of the world from that. There's a lot of things we can apply to the carrier. Almost any weapon, to a certain extent,
such a versatile
you can apply to a loadout carrier. But it's just we've got to get the main one right first.
Yeah,
getting the core
it's as you guys say. I think it sort of lives and dies at point defence balancing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It has a massive effect on the effectiveness of it.
We've got Pineapples, good to see you, thanks very much. Commandos, an Equalizer torpedo could reacquire the target after the blink. The Brawler Harpoon could do the same, or maybe just have less cooldown if you miss it.
So currently, it's just a general rule, isn't it, in the game? I think no missiles currently reacquire after blinking. I don't know what...
Well, there's that mismatch, isn't there? Yeah, we did that test. I think there's a thing where, as far as the server's concerned...
Oh, that problem's fixed.
Yeah, there's that fixed now?
Yeah, that was just a bug.
Oh, sweet. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so...
Currently
as a general rule, anything that tracks, if someone blinks, they lose tracking. Doesn't necessarily have to be a rule as long as it's very, very clear that one thing's doing one thing, the other thing's doing something different. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on that. Feedback, basically.
Definitely, it's a...
I mean, do you guys feel that maybe certain abilities like the Harpoon should reacquire if a Hunter or another ship blinks?
I think, it's a conversation we had. Anarchos, are there plans for a ship that is specialised at ramming like a plasma cutter or lance?
Yeah, we've talked a lot. I mean, obviously,
I know we've
ramming
talked a
needs
lot
to
about
evolve a bit. But yeah, we've talked a lot about ramming ships. I think I'm yes is the short answer. Yes, we actually want to make a ship that, or ships, multiple ships that exploit any aspect of the game. So ramming is one of those things, and you want a ship that has a specialty in ramming, does other things, but has a specialty in ramming. What I'm not keen on is the idea that then this ship has some special effect at the front, and that's what does the ramming damage. I think you kind of want the ramming to be the ship contact, but this ship is set up to do it. I mean, one of the nice ideas that was floated internally, but we haven't actually thought about developing a tool, is you have an explosive charge at the front of the ship, and when you ram, that whole thing detonates, and that's what inflicts the additional damage.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a lot of cool things you can do with it, and yeah, we are planning to investigate that, but we have to get, much as the same way we introduce small ships for the carrier, you'd have to get the ramming to a decent level first.
Yeah, basically just get some solid ramming in there, and then we can even have like ways to help a ship ram another ship, like automatically orientating yourself on the right trajectory. It's quite difficult to do that in our game with the camera the way it is, and a combination of boosts and stuff. So yeah, we can see what we can do.
And I mean, other things we talked about is then you start combining those ships. So we have obviously we have a ship that pulls, and we have talked about a ship that pushes, but the idea of pushing a ship into a ramming ship so that you get an additional momentum into the collision. But yeah, that's kind of down.
Sounds like, yeah, it's another one of those things. It's got a new system that it relies on, right?
It's kind of where we are with early access and everything. I mean, you see a lot of this where we try to add new systems that allow us to create new ships, new weapons, new experiences. But obviously they're adding a huge fundamental level to the game, whether it's energy or ramming or small ships, or even sort of the ability to physically manipulate ships. So those things take a while to mature, and then you can start building more things on them. And yeah, so it's just bear with us.
Zonrad here. Any plans on lowering the hit points of ion drones? They seem a little too powerful.
Well, I think that kind of comes back to the point defense
yeah.
again, and dealing with point defense and point defense balance. So you can't when you look at small ships or missiles, you can't do it without dealing with the counter, and the counter is the thing here, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult with abilities like that, because obviously, so ion drones is a good example of something where it's pretty much the primary way of dealing damage for the infiltrator. And if point defense can just entirely wipe them out in one volley, then actually you've now gone too far the other way, and every ship now 100% counters the infiltrator.
Yeah.
So it's like how best to balance that. We could perhaps instead increase the time it takes to get up to 5 stacks, or maybe decrease the number of drones that actually are, or or maybe slow down the time they stack up to how many of them you destroyed. There's loads of different ways of balancing that, rather than just doing a clear cut. Actually, they'll all be destroyed by point defense. Yeah. So yeah, we're going to look at community feedback on that and try and balance accordingly.
Sounds good. I think we might have to wrap up fairly soon because it's getting absolutely roasted in this room.
It is really warm here.
Stage lights are really cooking it.
Just come back from China. This is nuts.
That's true. Yeah. Sarah Van Dakken, actually. Again, something we covered at the start, but I think a lot of you guys probably missed it, so it's possibly worth revisiting briefly if you guys don't mind. About the flagship, the flak. Should it do / benefit from armor damage or not?
Yeah, as we say, we're looking at that now. We're changing the way armor damage works. AoE cannot, by the very fact it's AoE damage, influence armor. So what we're doing is changing the way the word that's applied to that projectile is not just an AoE damage, but has specific armor damage, impact damage, as well as it's currently already has small ship and missile damage. So the warhead actually gets relatively complex, but apologies for the repeat, but what we want to do is roll that into going back to the multi-fire flak that I've been talking about for ages but haven't done. So I've created the warhead with the multiple damage types. That works. That can actually break through armor, and then works to the extent that you're doing a consistent amount of damage. It doesn't completely make flak uber, but means it breaks armor. It means it does a consistent level of damage. But then what I want to do is actually make it look cool and do the multiple projectile sequential fire thing. The trick on that is making it look good, while actually, because you want it to fire everywhere, which means it's inaccurate, which means it's not satisfying. So it's getting that balance between the accuracy and inaccuracy on the flak, and then hand it over to Matt to do some nice cool effect, and that should be it. But the working side of it's there.
Okay, cool. Well, let's go for the last couple of questions here, and then I think probably wrap this up.
cool.
Call it an evening. We'll put this up on YouTube, of course. Commandos. I saw the amazing TDS flagship the other day and fell in love. Really nice design.
It's a beautiful ship. It's a beautiful
And Beam, could you give us some info about it? Again, I think we briefly covered it at the start, but we can run through the top line features.
Yeah, so it's early days yet. It's a beautiful model. We've handed over to Al Mermacan to build on. He's currently still building it, so the ship isn't fighting yet, really. He's put some weapon systems in there. They still need balance, but it's got 2 primary weapon systems. One of which is a very restricted arc long-range beam weapon, has a charge up, and then fires and does specific damage. You drag the beam across the ship. And its secondary weapon is a series of multiple turrets that kind of work like miniguns to the extent that they have a wind-up and then fire time. So it has 2 relatively complex weapon sets, one for relatively short, one for long range. But its prime feature isn't specifically its weapons as much as we want to, and haven't even got the code in yet. So this hasn't been input on the ship in any way, shape or form. But we want to give it a jump point where it can create a jump point in the map around the ship and teammates can jump to it. So that will be the big game changer on the Titan, and we're still discussing ways in which we can contain the power of that. But yeah, it's
and also communicate it well
Yeah.
to players and etc. etc. There are a lot of problems to solve, basically.
yeah. But you kind
Hope
of
it'll be cool.
always want the heavies to have a big impact on the game, whatever the consequences of that. And this is another one of those.
Seraphine's just following up there on the if flak does not do armour, it should change to missiles. It doesn't really make sense for a ship to have one weapon that is not affected by armour and one that is affected. I think that comes back to what we were saying.
Well, that's
about
fine, because we've said it's going to affect armour. So.
Okay, we'll call this the final question then. Seraphine, can we get a giant shotgun as a third weapon that is affected by armour for the skilled players?
Is that what? Does a flagship? What? I'm confused.
We're talking about the flagship. Yeah, we're talking about it as a.
The flak is going to be changed. To
Yes,
really
so I
affect
think
armour.
it's so I think that's
For
kind
the
of
fourth time,
kind of
flag's going to affect
yeah.
armour, but will look cool. So it's all.
Okay, I think we'd probably better call it a night there. We're
sweet.
exhausted.
Welcome to the new room. We're trying to get Sam to put his head on the green screen.
I'm going to go
for next
full
time,
Zordon
so
next
look
week.
forward to that.
But yeah, thanks very much, guys, for joining us.
Cheers, guys.
It'll be on YouTube tomorrow if anyone's just catching the end of this. We'll be doing another one in a couple of weeks' time, and of course, we'll all be on the playtest tomorrow night on streams, TeamSpeaks,
Getting killed.
getting killed, that sort of thing.
No, never happened.
So
And obviously, feel free to ask stuff on the forums,
Yep,
etc.
of
as well. We're normally monitoring them. So.
keep on keeping on. So yeah, that's
That's cool.
good
Got
night
notes.
from me. It's good night from the guys. Cheers,
Cheers,
guys.
guys. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.